So a long time,
Means are you
Stelios.
actually sitting in a car?
I am,
Are you
yes.
actually? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I thought
It's
this is like the background that you can.
no, it's my office.
That is
Yeah,
hilarious.
really long time.
Mm. I can be as loud as I like here, and nobody hears me.
For all the times when you have to scream at the people in the meeting.
Ah, yeah. Or when I'm laughing or crying or yelling, it's all fine here.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Haven't seen you for a long time, Stelios. How's life been for you?
Up and down, Vince.
Yeah, that sounds pretty normal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but the thing is that every time there is a period of clarity and see things, and you say, okay, I really get it now, or there is no attachment, or there's no seeking. So many crap comes out that I think I'm back in the seeking again. More subtle seeking, but to find even the more subtle details, and I feel I'm back to 0 point. I don't know. It's very, very strange.
Yeah, yeah,
You can talk to me. You can talk to me right now if it's my first day seeking all this. I feel totally confused. I don't know what is the base, what is the progress. I feel it's very confusing.
yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. This is something that everybody goes through at some point. Yeah. I was I was I was writing an article today about how do we know if we've actually seen through the illusion of self? How do we know if it's real or if we're just fooling ourselves?
Yeah.
Now, what I came to, I haven't finished this article by any means, but it's brought up some good stuff for me. So what I come through is this. Here's a simple test that doesn't mean anything, I have to say, but a simple test. If you experience an unpleasant experience, say an unpleasant emotion arises, gets triggered, do you meet that with resistance, not wanting it, wanting to fix it, or do you meet it with curiosity and an attitude that says, oh, how interesting is this? I wonder what it's showing me. Now,
Yeah.
but what we're talking about is somebody that's never been beyond the seeking mode for the one who meets it with resistance, and somebody who's been, let's say, awake, use that term, for some time. Right? But there's a whole lot of stuff in the middle. So the person that's had a shift can still meet that with resistance if it turns up, because it's the old way of responding to unpleasantness. We don't want it. Go away. Leave me alone. It must mean I'm not awake. Whatever. And so we meet it with resistance. It takes time and experience. We have to see this. This has to come up a few times before we start to realize that it doesn't mean we're not awake. It doesn't mean anything. What it means is here's an opportunity. And in the beginning, it might take a while. You might have an unpleasant experience turn up, have an emotional reaction to something, and it could be hours or even days. But in the beginning, it might be a long time. But after a while, it'll happen fairly quickly that you go, ah, I met that in the old habitual way with resistance. And now I'm curious. I wonder what triggered it. I wonder when the next opportunity for me to examine this will come along. I don't even know whether I'll finish this article because it's so fraught with traps. But at the same time, it might be a good thing to start with. If you've had a shift and you've experienced that clarity, and then you haven't, all it means is something else has popped up.
Yeah, but it triggers back the seeking.
Well, yeah, okay. So then that seeking is identification again, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right. Now, do we say that should not be here? Or do we say, I wonder why? I wonder what's going on? I wonder what happened? You can see fairly clearly when I say this, I'm sure, I imagine, you can see really clearly that if you say, go away, I don't want it, it's bad, let's fix it, any of that stuff, all you do is you make it stronger.
Yeah. I don't say go away. I'm in the mode that something new or old, because most of the time something even older comes up. There is a need to look at it, but it feels like seeking. It feels like I have to, in the first layer, it's okay, let's look at it. But in the second layer, it's look at it because I need to fix it.
Yes, yes. And that's the old way of looking at things, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right.
It's
And
frustrating because yeah, continue. Yeah.
so why do you need to fix it? Because it feels really, really bad, or because it means that you're not where you want to be?
It's a comparison that I spent, let's say, the last few months that there was no seeking and accepting even the bad feelings. I was accepting it and feeling it, that it was so alive and vivid. And you say, okay, I'm starting to have the handle of it. And then something comes up and you compare that, okay, why now I'm lost again and still seeking?
Why compare?
So, yeah, compare, yeah.
Why compare? Why do that? Where does that come from?
From the recent
Yes.
experience that I still want this to remain, yeah.
I still got this to remain. Yes, I'm not where I should be. I'm not where I want to be. There's something wrong. There's something missing. There's not. But the mind says there is.
But I'm still wondering why a month ago I could have all these in the surface unpleasant feelings and accepting it and feeling so alive into it.
Yeah.
And then some other unpleasant thing
Yeah.
comes up, and I'm so triggered. I'm so, okay, at first level, let's look at it, but then it's seeking. It's not the discovery. It's a subtle, I have to fix it because I have it and now I don't. And
Mm.
anyway, it's
Yeah.
very strange.
It is. It is. Yeah. Well, no, it's not strange. It feels strange to you. No, it's pretty normal. It's pretty normal. Everybody, and some people might label that as doubt. Oh, does that mean something? And so it comes along as doubt. Yeah. I have a story that's just a story, and I don't know how accurate it is, but the story is that when things are going good for you, that means you're in a position to look at something that remains. That's
Yeah.
an opportunity for more stuff to come up. So what's the difference? So stuff comes up for me and I go, okay, I might look at what triggered it, or I might just go, it's just something that came up and I'm not worried about it. I'm not going to put any energy into it. I don't know. I don't control those things, whether I do or not.
Yeah.
But I don't start seeking again. What's because what is it because I have a story that it doesn't mean anything? That it doesn't mean that I'm not awake? Or that I don't care? Or that awake includes this stuff? I'm not sure. I don't know.
I have a story.
Thank you. Please.
Um, you know, that you're seeking or not seeking, it doesn't really matter from my perspective. If you're seeking, it just means you're not done. Because if you were done, you wouldn't be seeking. So just let that be as it is. Let it be seeking. And then look at why are you seeking now compared to why weren't you seeking then? Is this whatever this is that kind of led to this seeking? Is this threatening some deeper beliefs, perhaps? Something you haven't looked at before? Something that needs attention and maybe a bit of a deconstruction? Instead of just, putting the effort into not seeking, which is counterproductive from our perspective. Just look at what is happening. If you don't label it seeking, what is actually happening?
Marius, for me it's frustrating because it feels like I'm doing circles. In the last period, things come up that I thought I'm done with it 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And now many insecurities and stuff came up that I thought it was done and it's up again. And I thought it was very clear to me. And even now, it's very clear to me why this happens. But I don't know why it triggers me so much. So I get into looking at it. But looking at it, it feels, that I have to fix it.
Yeah, that is a good place to look. Who is there that needs to fix this? Isn't that just a thought?
It is.
Do you need to act on that thought?
No, but it triggers me. That's I
Yeah, but
realize it afterwards.
do you have an expectation that you won't be triggered once you are
Probably, yeah.
fully there? Yeah.
Probably, yeah. Are you still triggered?
Yeah. Well,
But
I'm triggered, but in a different way, so to speak. It's a bodily happening that doesn't need to. I don't need to feel the need to do anything with it.
you don't create story. The stories are not created, but that bodily sensation, eh?
Well, I'm not gonna say never. Stories can also get created, but again, it's seen for what it is. It's seen like, so if you look at this very mechanically, it is the body reacting, and then the mind reacting to the body with the story. And that's a fully habitual mechanism that has been going on for our whole life. And that's that. Or we can, dive into trying to fix this and, grasp onto our peace and our clarity, and cultivate this doubt that Vince is talking about. I think maybe look at the expectations that what this is supposed to look like. So if you've had a long period of peace and wonderful things happening, it's really easy for the mind to just, yes, this is the landing place. I've arrived. But that's the
You know,
mind grasping at a landing place.
in that particular phase, I was not expecting this. I really could see that there's something going on. It could change in a minute. It was totally clarity about no expectations, full acceptance. And this was, something that bothers me. This was back in Athens. I moved for the summer back to my family home. And the first day, it was an aeroplane from Athens, just half an hour from here. And the moment I arrived here, it was totally fucking boiling. And I could see it from the first day and I could sit with it, but it keeps coming and coming and coming. And I don't know, maybe it's the place or me reacting to the place. But the reality.
Absolutely.
So,
I think that
scenarios
I
comes
think
to me that maybe it's better to move back to Athens because this place is
you
not
don't
for
want to
me.
feel this. Yeah, that's the mind, right? It wants to change what is happening. Can you just be with what is happening even if it's uncomfortable, not fixing it
I'm trying.
forever?
Yeah, I'm trying, but there is an expectation that it will come back to the previous state that it was
Yeah,
much comfortable.
and that's I've been there, man. I can totally relate to that. But that also has to be let go of. There is no place to land. There is no final destination where everything will just be sunshine and rainbows. Life will
Yeah,
still continue, and things will go up and down. But the need for that to be different is what changes.
What you experience then, what you mentioned then, just makes absolute sense. It is really, really common. It's an old one that Ram Dass said. If you think you're so enlightened, go spend a weekend with your parents, right? Or in your case, just return to the family home, right?
yeah, because my parents are not here. Nothing
Yeah,
triggers me.
but the home
My
is.
parents,
Yep. And that triggers stuff. Now, why does that trigger stuff? Simply because it hasn't been seen.
yeah,
So here you are, triggered, and you're right back the way you were before anything you might call waking up happened while you're here. So you simply need to go through the same thing again that you went through when you woke up and do it here. So if you were to go away somewhere, return somewhere else, and you're experiencing clarity again, and you think, okay, I'm here, I'm right. And then you come back here and all this happens again. Now, why does that happen? Well, you don't need to know the details of it. If you recognize that something is triggering in you, it's still based on the same thing that you discovered when you were away. That is, there's no self there. But the self is created. So here's another interesting one. There is no place called waking up. Right? There is what you might describe as a perspective where you feel clarity and you react well to what gets triggered and so on. But that stuff isn't static. It comes and goes all the time. And so here you are being triggered again. So just do the same work that you did when you saw through the self while you're away, and you'll see through the self while you're here. And then you won't be triggered. Because that triggering still relies on the basis, on the fundamental foundation that there's a belief in a self somewhere. And you didn't know about that belief in the self while you're away, but when you came home, it gave you the gift of showing you that it was still there. Now, it doesn't mean that it's either there or not there. It can be there and then it can not be there, and it can be back again. It can be not there and it can be back again. That's the reality. When you went through months and months of clarity, did you think to yourself every day, oh, I'm awake, I'm here? Or was it a non-event? You didn't even think about it, did you? You just went through life doing
It was
what life.
just,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So there is no place. There is no waking up. It's a joke to say I'm awake. It's only relevant for people who are seeking to talk about that.
That's
So
why I tell you, it feels like I'm back to seeking.
yeah, well, you are back to seeking. So
It's,
what do you do about that?
it feels a long road to do all the circle again.
It's not the same circle. You've been there. You know what to do. You just do it again. You don't have to go around through the whole thing that you went through before because you've already done that. Life is going to keep offering you bits and pieces that you haven't seen before. And that's what's happened now. And one day you might be years and years where everything is nice and clear and you're feeling really good about life and you're quite relaxed and contented. And then somebody comes along and just says one sentence to you, and all of a sudden something gets triggered in you. And you go, oh, okay, here's something else that I didn't know was there. You don't know about these things until they get triggered. And this is triggered. And this is a bit overwhelming because this is big stuff. Because it's your whole childhood attitude that still exists in you.
yeah. I
But you
think
don't,
I'm back.
yeah,
Yeah.
but you don't need to worry about the childhood stuff. It's what's in you now that is there to be looked at. You don't even need to know what it is. You just need to know that it rests on the illusion of a self. It has that basic foundation of a belief in a self. That's all you have to know about. And if I say to you now, is there a self there? What do you say? Is there a self there running the show?
No,
No, of course not. But that response at the emotional level believes there is. Now you're in trouble. Part of you believes there isn't, and part of you believes there is. What are you going to do? Which
I
one
would
is right? Sorry, go on.
reframe that a little bit. There is a belief that because there is the response, there is a self.
Okay, yeah. So the
I
self
think
gets
it's
created, yes.
I think it's fruitful to get intimate with how the self is creating itself. So
How self?
sorry,
There was an aeroplane. How
yeah,
self? What did you say?
how the self creates itself. So, for example, notice how you keep interpreting everything that is going on in your life, in your experience. Something gets triggered and the narration starts. An interpretation of what is happening in my body. What does this mean about me? What does this mean about, what is this connected to? You're basically building the self doing the interpretation. Because that's a habit. You need to, like, the self or the mind wants to understand every single detail instead of just being with what is.
I'm not so back to chasing stories. I can see stories come and go. It's a more subtle level that it's like this that I didn't have. I thought that was past of it. I can be in the feelings, I can be in the body, I can cry, I can laugh, I can fully experience it. And then I can be in this vivid experience for not, analyze or really everything is uh, not solid,
Mhm.
and then it comes a question: is this it? Or I have to find the difference so I can remember if this is how it feels to not be governed by the mind. I tried to recognize the difference in the experience now. And this is still seeking. I'm not
Oh,
fully
yeah,
accepting.
yeah,
I'm not fully relaxing to what it is. I try to analyze even what I know that it's just an
yeah.
experience of.
And by doing that, the self gets created.
Yeah, yeah.
But now that that is
And
pointed out, maybe you can see that.
so every time you try to understand something, self is created.
Yeah.
So the the truth is, when we don't really understand anything, but
I think,
even
yeah, I think let's look at it differently. Okay. So let's look at experience from two different levels. So you have the level of which I will now call reality, and then you have another level which I will call the dream. You still have to live in the dream, and the dream is made up of thoughts, of narration, of interpretation, of questions, of all of that stuff. That is dream stuff. You don't mm, you don't have to live in the dream every waking moment of your life, but you have to go in and be functional, right?
Mhm.
So you recognize that, okay, now I'm going into the dream. I'm going into be functional and be play my part as a character in the dream. But you recognize that you're aware of now you are the character. And then on the other side, maybe when you have some solitude, or you are alone, or maybe not alone, but with, in a space where you don't really need to put on the character, you can be with reality, with no interpretation, just raw experience. And the more you kind of do that with awareness, the more this becomes clearer to you, that when you're actually creating this character and when you're actually not. And then this whole dream character doesn't feel as heavy anymore. Doesn't feel as seductive or as contractive or whatever. It's just it's the dream.
Kind of doing what you say, but when I have time on myself and reality comes up more vivid and the fantasy relaxes, there is a subtle doer that I now will be back in reality. And I'm watching this thought, and I see there is still a doer. Do you get what I mean?
Who says that there is a doer?
This is a question I'm still asking myself. Comes up, who is a doer?
No, who says that there is a doer?
A voice that I'm attached to it.
Yeah, so but now you recognize that it's just a thought. It's really just the thought that you're aware of, but then you follow that thought. You don't have to follow it, but you do, because there is something, there is a belief perhaps, or an expectations that we have talked about, that there is something on the other side of that you need to get to. That's where the seeking starts, right? But if you see that as just a lure to get you
You know,
to keep the self alive,
yeah.
the
In
less
this
you
moment,
feed that, right? The less that energy gets your attention, the more you help along the dissolving of that.
the less the energy that it feels like a self.
No, so there is,
Because I'm trying to just staying with the energy, I
yeah,
can see that the energy is more real and thoughts are just imaginary. But the energy, you can feel it in the body.
mhm.
So now you said the less you follow this energy, but I thought
No, the thought.
that,
I meant the thought, the movement of the thought. The more attention you
okay,
give to the thought, the
to the
more
thought.
energy you're feeding that seeking energy.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. In this moment, there is still something to try and find out who is not following or not following the thought. This is the final.
Yeah.
Or
So
who is the one? What is the one that it shows? It has seen
what
a
if you
thought
drop
as
all
just
of
a
that?
thought.
What if you drop all of trying to figure that out? Because
If you
there's
could
nothing to
punch me in the
figure out.
face and drop it out, really, really, I would be so grateful.
Yeah,
I'm
I'm
bored
just
of
trying
this.
to help you see that it's the need to know, it's the need to understand what's going on.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
the thing here. It's
And how you
uncomfortable
get,
to not know. And you need to face that uncomfortableness.
okay. So yeah, maybe it's just uncomfortable to not know. Because I can see the moments of some clarity that there is nothing need to be known.
Mm.
But probably something in the body moves that it's uncomfortable and thought is back to trying to understand.
Yes.
So keep noticing the uncomfortable, not even trying to understand the uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because when I try to understand, it's seeking.
Yeah. So noticing will happen. It's not you're trying to notice, but you know you're uncomfortable. You will notice, and just don't go into trying to understand why you're uncomfortable, because all of that is just going to be imagined interpretation, dream
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. You know, when there is clarity, it's like a truly roller coaster in the body. Like you are in a train and it goes like this and like this, and you can feel all of this, and it's beautiful.
Mm,
I, I don't mind this. This is very nice. You feel alive, you know.
yeah.
But the moment you try to find a difference, this is what triggers me. But thanks. Yeah, I get what you say. Just staying with the comfortable and the unknown and whatever comes.
Yeah. And all of this is what I like to call just sitting in the burn. So whatever it is, like can also be some kind of an attachment or a challenge. Something challenges the core belief and you get defensive, or like all of that stuff that just brings up intensity in the body, like that sort of feels like a burn. Don't figure out any of it. Just sit in the burn.
I do, Marius, I do. And it's, you said a magic word, because it feels like a burn here sometimes, that
Yeah.
it's many, many years and it goes away, it comes up again. It's like pulling this up, and I can stay with this many times and cry about it and laugh about it and see many scenarios about it, but it's
Mm.
still here. Maybe
Yeah.
1 month note, but again, it's
Yeah, but you seem to expect that it will be gone.
sometimes I feel that it's my purest truth, that it was always there. Somehow it's based on interpretation related to
Sometimes
the,
the burn is just there and sometimes it isn't.
yeah, yeah, that simplifies, yeah.
Hmm. Nothing to fix, nothing to understand.
Yeah. The last thing that I try to mention is, it bothers me when I forget this, because there are periods I really know this, and then I'm sucked back to the self and not remembering this, and then remember it again. And so I say, if I keep forgetting it, that's why I'm always trying to find the distinction, what is actual and what is not, because I feels like I keep forgetting, keep
Yeah,
forgetting the experience of,
and that will happen until it doesn't happen.
yeah, because I can see that the moments of silence, it become more and more and with bigger length.
Mm.
So I think this is the only way. It will happen when it will happen. It will remain more silence, less talking, more silence, less talking, until the silence becomes more present and not covered with crap.
Yeah. And then you can
If
just, yeah, go ahead, Anton.
if I may, it's in some point it's just less and less wanting the silence, because the silence is still, it's just an experience, and you divide the silence from the unpleasant sensations, and
That's very right.
and it makes the mind going on a ride of how am I getting more of the silence and less of the sensations. And in some point you see that the silence, the experience of the silence is not it. All is it. It's not that when you have an unpleasant sensation, it is not it. It is it always. And less you are trying to have this silence. And it's funny that as less you try to have the silence, the more it comes to you effortlessly, and it's everywhere. Like when you try to have it, it's like I don't know how to explain.
Yeah,
It's not so. And when you are not trying, it comes to you because there is no resistance. But
constant.
the resistance can still come, and it come sometimes huge. But you know, it is still it. And then you can be in a difficult states still, but it's different in a way. You know that nothing has been taken from you, because it's no one can take it from you. So anything can happen, but it's still it. And it's okay to have these mind rides and to try to understand. You will just less and less think that it is you trying. It can still try to understand, but the one that is trying to understand, it's it as well. You don't need to stop it, and you cannot really stop it. It's a joke to try to stop it. When you try to stop it, you're
You
feeding
are a
it.
doer again. Yeah.
Yeah, it's another one that is trying to stop the one that is trying to understand, and it's
Yeah.
endless.
Yeah.
And then you have
But
another one that's trying to stop the one that is trying. It's endless. It's just it, and it's also it. It's okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
thank you very much. I've never thought about it. That making a distinction between silence or not,
Yes. Yes. It's
trying
important.
to be,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. And
So I
then you
thought
can
silence
more
the key.
relax in the sensations, and it can be really like Marius is saying, it can be like going into the fire with the sensation. And
Yeah.
and the different people have different amounts of energy that is going through them. So some people it's a big fire, and some people but it's not really so important, because all the fires is one fire that is happening in it. It is it.
Can I ask then just a question?
Thank you.
Because Vince also sometimes then says like, yeah, but you know, if there's, let's say, a situation coming that triggers, then you should get with this curiosity and trying to find what is beneath it, which is, I mean, because like I think I understand everything you guys just said, in the end, it's all just a mechanism, you know, something from environment happens. There's a bodily sensation that happens, and then there's thoughts and stories created about it. So I could see it just like this, or I should act now with a curiosity and look into it. So now I'm a little bit confused in what approach now. Or is it maybe the same thing and I just don't understand that?
The thing is that it's not an approach. It can happen that you will inquire, and it can happen that you will just relax inside the experience. The thing that just trying, not resisting it, and it's really not a trying, but we keep trying to do something, and then we remember. It's a process in a way.
Well, what I hear you ask, Lenny, and that I feel a need to respond to, is that idea of inquiring.
Yeah, exactly.
How do we inquire? We don't need to shine a light on the details of the origin of anything. Inquiry is really, what are the sensations?
And only that.
Just that's yeah. So sometimes doing that in a relaxed way may reveal whatever stories are attached to that, whatever happened before, but it's not necessary and it's not inevitable.
And I'm also not doing this to change anything. I really just one single
Exactly.
purpose.
Yes. Yep. So the curiosity, really the emphasis on curiosity is, it's in the curiosity is a very soft acceptance of the unknown. Even it's just not knowing, but it's just a soft acceptance of, oh, okay, rather than any kind of resistance or running away or wanting it to be different.
Okay, I think then I get it. Okay.
Yeah, I also just want to add, Lenny, that whatever has been said, you will end up doing what feels right for you to do, and just cultivating that sense, that trust in yourself that you will know what feels right and lean into that is like a superpower.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, something a caveat that I should have is that of course everybody is unique in themselves, and it's a stupid way to put it, but everybody's at their own place on this journey. And so consequently, when you hear somebody else say something, it's important to not get hooked into or sucked into the idea that that's something that should happen for me. It will stimulate stuff for you, but it'll stimulate your version of that stuff. So that's important. You never can. This comparison's a bitch. Every time we compare, whether we compare ourselves before Stelios, when we're clear, to when we now feel like seeking is happening, or whether we compare where we are to where somebody else is, it's crazy. How can you compare apples to oranges?
So the only thing that anyone can ever do for you is to mirror stuff back to you. So I could say like 100% of what I say, you can end up with only 20 matching your specific set of conditioning. because that was what was meant to fit your puzzle pieces, right? So nothing is ever wrong. Everything is as it should be. You can't get off track. Sometimes we just need a reminder of that.
Yeah, and in that case, really just sometimes a little bit of a clarification, because I think it's sometimes with this inquiry a little bit confusing. So yeah, I think up till now I still have not entirely understood the concept. So thanks for
That's a
clarifying.
tricky one. I mean, the word implies work, doesn't it? Inquiry
Exactly.
implies
And that is
work.
exactly
Yeah.
what annoyed the shit out of me. And then there was a time when I didn't want to do it, and maybe that was also just already intuition. But
Yeah.
I think now I understood a little bit, yeah, what is meant by that noun, and actually makes sense for me.
Yep.
I
I did.
think there's a common understanding that seeking is bad, that work is bad. And then I want to ask, who decides what is meant by the label seeking? When I say seeking, does that necessarily mean the same seeking as you understand seeking or work or whatever? If we remove all of those labels and just look at what is happening without the concept of work or seeking or anything, what is it then? It's just what's happening. We're on a ride. We're not doing anything. It's like it is magical how the mind can overlay its own creation of reality by putting it into a story, into a perspective of me, onto something that, it's like, for example, my mind is now creating a story that I'm in this Zoom meeting talking about awakening. But is that actually what is happening? Am I not just sitting here in a room making sounds to a perceived object to people that I don't even know exist?
But my question here is, and that was also already the question as asked Vince last time. So are you always able to see, the created story immediately when it is happening? Because like, I think what maybe feels a lot like this frustrating thing is that, you see things afterwards, like, story, I've been trapped, like, or I was hypnotized. But hypnotization by this story. And I wonder if people who are, let's say, longer awake or more, I don't know, like further in this ride and process, are they able to see stories while they are being created? Do they see the labels and post-it notes already, every time they appear? Or do you also just read the content first and then say like, it was in post?
I can only speak for myself, but what seems to happen here is there is less interpretation of what is going on in each moment. So it's not a creation of continuity like it used to be. That can still happen, but it happens a lot less.
Mm-hmm.
How would you respond to Lenny, Dan? What would you say about that question?
I would say, similar to Marius, I would say that first off, awakening is also a story. But I would say that it's these getting stuck in the narrative things. There is this experience that of that happening less and less and longer durations in between. And but there's nothing wrong with it happening. And it seems to be kind of like once you figured out the rules of a game and you figured out how to beat the game, you lose interest in playing that game. And that's kind of what this seems to be like, right? In that it stops grabbing attention, and energy stops getting contracted and isolated into that narrative, and then into the following narrative that says I was stuck in another narrative. Both narratives.
And I think that's where the frustration on this end comes. And I can assume, but it's really just an assumption, that it also the one for Stelios, that you have kind of understood the rules of the game and assume, and that's I know the problem, that now it would happen less and less frequent, because exactly what you just said. And when it doesn't happen, you feel like, how maybe I did not understand the rule of the games at some point, because it's just not happening less. And I mean, I know this is again a narrative and it's part of that thing, like this is how is also there in it, I guess.
But what wants something to compare to? So what I and Dan just shared is we created a story to kind of relate as best as we can to you. So that story is just a story, is never as detailed and nuanced as what we just said. And what you heard from that is also completely different from what we actually meant when we sent it out, so to speak. So, having anything to compare to is a major trap. Don't go there. You have the experience that you have in this moment and the next moment. Any comparison is just fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
Can you see who wants to know? Can you see who wants to know? Who asked that question? That's where the juice is for you.
Back to wanting to understand. Which is also fine.
Yeah. I'd like to hear Anton's answer to that question, and then I'll give you mine.
Yeah.
They're stories, but yeah. What do you reckon, Anton?
I like the idea of the game, and what arose in me is that there is we cannot win the game. It's just that we stop playing, and to stop playing, you don't need to know the rules of the game. You just stand up and go from the table. You just don't play, and no one can really win. It's you at the beginning, you lost, really, and we stop playing, and then there is a habit to try to play again and again, but you stop again and again, and this is the game, really. To stop
But
the game.
sorry, who stops playing the game? Because
No one really
if there is
stops.
someone here to stop playing, there should be someone.
It seems that this is what happens, that you play and then you stop and then you play, but you not the one that seems to do it. It's just happening like this.
Yeah, I
And
think it's
the-
more
and
accurate to say that game playing happens less.
yes,
Mhm.
yes. And it's just that you less seeing yourself as the one that is playing. And yeah.
Yeah, but I totally understand now that actually trying to understand and trying that just builds up expectations that will stand in the way of
Yep.
what is happening. I really get that. But I had to, I mean, also the thing wanted to ask that question, so I had
Yeah,
to
exactly. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. The question didn't make any sense to me. And when I
Mm.
look at my recent experience and try and find, did I respond to a story or did I not respond to a story? All I could come up with was another story. I have this belief that it's all story. So I'm not trying to get out of the story, and I'm not really,
Mm.
I'm not interested. It just doesn't matter. When I have a reaction to something, when I get triggered, which is a story, but there is this emotional experience that happens here. It's seen to happen, but then it's not happening, and that's it.
Can I just say how much I enjoy this right now? I love this entire session this time. It's like a lot of really cool pointers. Thanks, guys, really. Can't wait for the video. I think this is a very juicy one. I think I'll look into this very often.
Hmm. How's life been for you, Miko, in the last couple of days?
Hi, Vince. Sorry, I just heard you saying my name. I couldn't hear your question.
I was just giving you the opportunity to tell us what your experience has been in the last couple of days.
Mm. There's been a lot of sensations in the body. So I was actually thinking about asking the question because I think it's very difficult to sit with fear, like when it's really strong. And I don't know, sometimes it just feels like I'm getting choked and it feels really unpleasant. And I just want to, escape. So I find it quite difficult to meet those big emotions or those big strong sensations. So I don't know how to cope with it. Like, do I just breathe through them, or
Well, before we go there, can you tell us what your spontaneous reaction to them is? What is it that occurs to you when that happens?
so probably there's these stories going on in my mind because I'm now in the midst of like a big, as you know, big thing going on in my life, and that brings a lot of fear, a lot of triggers, and yeah, sometimes I can just get stuck in the story if the sensations are quite strong. So it just keeps on going in a loop and building up even, seeing the worst case scenarios and just feeling completely choked, yeah, by that.
Mm. So you're so involved in that that the idea that who it's happening to doesn't even occur to you.
Yeah, it's because yeah, it's just like the self is there all the time, the me. But I noticed that when it's just small sensations like irritation, frustration, or even like annoyance or whatever, it's seen quite fast, and just feeling the sensations is okay. And yeah, then I just don't get caught up in that loop. I don't know.
Mm.
It just happens that it sort of moves on. But when it's those big, strong sensations, then there's this self that seems to get caught up in all of the stories and
Yeah, so
can't see.
when it's those big strong sensations, would it be more accurate to say when there are certain kinds of stories that create those big sensations? Would that be more accurate?
I'm not sure which one happens first. I mean, sometimes it feels like, I don't know, but sometimes it feels like the sensations happens first, and then it's like the thoughts are a projection of the sensations, and
Mm-hmm.
then it can sort of like go back and
Yep.
forth, and yeah.
So when that happens like that, can you recognize what triggers the sensation? Where does it come from? Or where does it seem to come from?
Right now, I want to answer that it feels like at least there's some kind of chronic sensations of stress in my body, but it may be the thoughts that seems to just, yeah, show up. And then the sensations, yeah, comes from that.
Mm. Was that a new discovery that you just made?
Which one? The sensations comes from the thoughts?
Yes. That there are other stories underneath the sensations, and then the sensations occur, and then that creates other stories that go round and around. Did you just discover that that the sensations came from a story that you weren't actually aware of before? Was that a discovery?
Mm. I have been looking at it before, and in the very beginning, there was a seeing, or like I thought there was, the sensation came from the thoughts, but then looking a bit further, I saw, or like at least believed, that the sensations came first, then the thoughts came as a projection, as I told you. But
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
yeah.
So tell me again, if the sensations came first, what triggered them? Did they just come out of nowhere? Was there something that started them off? So I can imagine, for example, I can imagine that there's a couple of possibilities. I mean, you might get a letter, and that could trigger the sensations, right? Or you might have a memory that might trigger the sensations.
Mm.
But I can't see that the sensations are going to turn up without something pushing them.
Mm.
It's possible, I guess. But
Mm.
so I'm just wondering, have you seen already that something causes those sensations to turn up?
No,
No. Okay. So they
I
just,
just
to you,
feel the
they
sensation.
just, yeah,
Yeah,
they just seem to be there.
yeah.
Yeah.
They feel like you.
Sorry?
They feel like you. You feel like the sensations and the thoughts, yeah?
Yeah. Yes.
How can that be?
I mean, it seems like the self is quite strong when yeah, stories like this happens. Like or in this situation now, it's quite how to say so I will just tell what's going on. So I'm going to court against my ex-partner with my 17 weeks old baby, and there's a lot of attachment to that. So when the attachment happens, then the self gets really strong and the stories get really strong. So yeah, I mean, but when the everyday is there and there's just like these small happenings, like the small annoyances, if I get triggered by a friend or whatever, then it's quite easy to see through. Like,
Yeah. So you just said when the attachment is there,
mm, yeah,
that's what excites the self, and that's what excites the sensations that seem to get off into a loop. You attend your baby if you need to. That's fine. Yeah.
it's okay. He's just trying to sleep.
Yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
Good. But did you see what you just said was something happened to trigger those sensations and those stories, and you called it when that attachment was there. Yeah. So that might happen when you look at your baby, or when you see a letter on the table, or when a thought turns up that says, I'm going to court. Any of those things could trigger that thing that takes over you for a moment. Do you get that?
Yeah, I get that.
This is an interesting one, that when you're relaxed, let's say you're attending your baby and you're really involved in your baby, and there's no self there. And then one of these things happens and it gets triggered, and there's a self there. And then that self is in survival mode. Now, that self is being protective, looking for something.
Nico, I want to highlight a belief here that is completely understandable, but I think it's fruitful to just look at. And that is the belief of control. So there is these reactions may come up because you believe that you're in control of an outcome of what will happen. And the reality is that there is no control. That doesn't mean that you don't do whatever you need to do or feel like you need to do to, you know, achieve an outcome. But it also, it does mean that looking at, you know, when looking at these attachments and these intense fears that comes up, that they're tied to a belief that if you don't do this perfectly, the worst outcome is going to happen. And that is just a belief. I understand that that feels super real, like on a human level. I'm not saying that, you know, this is nothing, but it is a belief. So, you know, everything that happens in this current situation is out of your hands when it comes to the outcome. And again, I want to highlight that doesn't mean you just sit idle and do nothing, but it's the belief that if I don't do this perfectly, this isn't going to go well. That's where the juice is for me, from what you're sharing.
Yes. I just wanted to say that's true. I've been trying to control the situation a lot, and it feels really hard to like not to. Mm. But yeah, it's the control that makes the pain.
I just want to say, I just want to remind you, you don't have to not. Doing it or not doing it is the same thing. So if you find yourself doing what Marius said, recognizing it is enough to change it. You don't have to do not doing. There's no right or wrong here. What you become aware of has already happened every time. There is no wrong or right. It's just what it is. Yeah.
And also recognize that part of that belief is the belief in the worst possible outcome, right? That's what's at the end of, if I don't do this right, the worst will happen. But, you know, there's no way for you to know that.
And there's a belief, there's a story that you can't tolerate the worst if it were to happen. That's not true. It's a resistance to that. If you can just let go and accept whatever happens, you'll let go of the resistance to it, and you'll realize that you were creating all of it. You were creating the suffering there.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. That's true. That is true. Thank you.
Your baby is a great mentor. Your
Yes, this is
baby.
what I wanted to say right now. It's like to ask what the baby is thinking about it. And it's
Yeah, true. Thank you.
Jesus said, "Become again like a child to enter the kingdom of heaven."
Yeah, I often think about ducks, like they're just swimming around and swimming to people when they come with food, or like they have their, I don't know, interactions in their way, but there's like no, oh, you're so stupid because you did this to me, or like they're just being ducks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a good one. Just be a duck for
Yeah,
sure.
be a duck.
Yeah. Yeah. And you'll notice ducks are a great one. You'll notice if they get startled or stressed out, they'll just get up and shake themselves and
Mm.
relax, and they're back to normal. Yeah, it's beautiful.
We all have we all have that duck nature in us, but there's, the human mind also created the pyramids and the Eiffel Tower and the Mona Lisa and the Sistine Chapel and all of the Shakespearean plays and the symphonies and so much more. But, you know, it comes at a cost sometimes.
I actually have another question here. Because after the self started falling away, then the motivation and creativity also fell away. Has that happened to anyone? Yeah.
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 For in my experience, the what I used to call creativity and motivation was very much ego based. So it was tied to, looking a certain way or achieving certain things because that was what I was taught to do to succeed in life and all of those kind of things. And there was a long period of not doing anything and a battle in the mind with, you know, I mean, I'm just useless now. I should be doing more. I should be creating. I should be doing this. And then, when that was let go and there wasn't the shoulds and shouldn'ts anymore, um, real creativity and inspiration had space to come through. And it didn't need to be anything or create anyone or anything like that. And even then, the self could try to grasp onto it and make something more out of it than just this clean inspiration that wants to come through. And that was seen, and that creative project was let go of. And this is kind of a continuous journey for me where I'm learning to just let go of stuff that has been started and not be attached to those things that just wants to be expressed. But for you, like, I think seeing the shoulds and the shouldn'ts perhaps is a fruitful thing to do, because there is no shoulds and shouldn'ts. That's all the old conditioning running.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I've been having a lot of shoulds and maybe also a certain kind of grief, I think, to
Mm,
sort of missing the creativity.
yeah,
It's feeling quite flat, sort of, after like
yeah,
yeah. So
I can relate
yeah.
to all of that.
Mm. Oh, thank you. It's worth having a look at.
Yeah.
Mm.
I'm also, can you hear me? Okay. I'm also in this place exactly. I have lost all creativity. And sometimes I see, Marius, this creative process or a filter that tries to analyze this experience as a creative outcome, that all this could be this idea,
Mm, yes.
there is still a need to channel it to some creative part, but this need is also ego-based, right? So do you channel this creativity that now you have this shift? Do you channel this creativity or just letting passing by?
I I usually what happens is usually, you know, if something is wants to be expressed, it 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 will be expressed. But if it wants to, like, if the mind wants to grasp on and make something out of it more than just an expression, like it wants to create a whole project, an outcome, something like that, then that is usually seen and it's felt. It's seen because it's felt. It's seen because it turns energetically from just a free flowing inspiration to something that wants to become something. And, you know, through this happening enough times to, you know, recognize that movement, I seem to have learned to just let go of that, because it seems to, you know, it's painful every time. So now it's just like, okay, this wants to die.
So you do not express it, you do not channel it.
I express it until I see that it wants to become, that it has moved from just a creative expression until something wants to grab on and make something out of it. That's when I drop
Wants to, yeah. When you see that you are not in the creative process anymore, but in the outcome, that something wants to become an outcome.
Yes. And this is very much alive for me right now, where I've been very into looking at patterns in this way. So it seems like a pattern here is to kind of choke the creativity by making it into something. And a kind of, it seems like now there is a curiosity around, okay, so if I notice this happens before it kind of has choked out the creativity, what happens then? Can I just let it go for a while and pick it back up if it wants to get picked back up? Because and then just see, or is there a kind of a fear, or, you know, something clinging to that, that just kills the whole project? I want, the curiosity is around stopping before that happens, just putting it away, shelving it for however long it needs to be shelved. And that seems to break that pattern here, at least. But I don't know. I'll keep you updated.
For me, my work has to do totally with creative stuff. And the last year, I don't feel it doing anything of this. Probably soon I will be out of money, but I have no. It feels so suppressing for me to try anything of this. It doesn't come natural to me. So maybe I will not do it again. I have no idea. But
Yeah.
it's totally changed, yeah.
Yeah, I think again, like looking at what used to motivate those things was usually some kind of ego movement.
Yeah.
So be willing to cut ties with that. I think at least that's what needed to happen here. The willingness to just cut it. That's when creativity and inspiration can just move freely.
And what do you mean by cut it? Don't do anything that has to do.
Well, as soon as it turns into something I need to produce, then I cut it. I stop doing it.
Yeah, yeah.
If we examine this thing that we're calling creativity, it kind of almost doesn't make sense to call it creativity. What is experienced here is inspiration and then expression. There's no finished product. The finished products will happen, but they're kind of never really finished. They get put out as a finished product just because the next one comes and interrupts that one. But their inspiration to create. For me, it's story writing. At the moment, I'm just cannot stop making stories to try and express something. And I almost dare not reread what I post because I want to change it as soon as I read it. I haven't got time to do that because the next one's wanting to come out. So there's inspiration and expression, not creation. Creation implies a finished product. Yeah.
I do the same. I have a big Word document
And it comes and goes. I'll have three.
Vince, you keep freezing and unfreezing. And
Yeah.
yeah.
My stupid internet. I've been talking to my provider for 3 months now, and again more recently but it's not. Yeah.
In my experience, somehow the idea of creativity just not in my experience. And I was a creative someone. It's like it's just. It seems like the creativity have to have a creator. Otherwise, everything is creativity. Anything that happens is creativity. So there is no lack of creativity. It's just that if you say this is creativity and this is not creativity, you create some idea. Just if I play something, this is creativity, and if I'm cooking, it's not creativity. No, everything is creativity, but without a creator already. So
Yeah.
That was a
And
creative story.
yeah. Yeah, we have funny ideas about it, and something like it's either there or it's not there. Well, that's not my experience. It can be there little or not or a lot, and it's going to vary every moment of every day. And I never find myself going, oh, that's creativity, or that's inspiration, or that's expression. There is just the doing or not doing, or the thinking or the not thinking, or the idea forming or not forming, or whatever is happening. It's constantly moving and varying. So there's never no yes and no. It's always something. Well, that was pretty weird, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, for me, I
There's
have thousands.
I hope. Yeah.
Yeah.
gosh, Stelios.
I want to say that I have thousands of unfinished projects or ideas because there is a need something, sometimes that I have an idea and I write it down, and this is very nice. The moment this stops and I'm seeking for an end product of this, it's for me over. I cannot do this. I cannot suppress myself to do this anymore.
But you said that you have 1,000 unfinished things, but can you see them as finished? Already finished
It
things?
is.
Because
It
if you
is.
say that they are unfinished, you will have to finish them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
unfinished is finished.
It's
Yeah.
it's unfinished for the world to see them.
In the
But
idea
the
of
process,
how it should be, but
exactly, yeah.
there
The
is no
process is
should.
finished.
Everything is finished. Yeah. So
Yeah, also another story to just kind of look at this from a different perspective is um, sometimes we have these ideas and we create something, we start something, but it's not really this thing that we started on that is the um, finished product that we think it is. It's just part of the process of something else that might come later on, which we don't really, we're not thinking about in terms of a narrative, but it's going on, subconsciously. So the process of starting something, but not finishing what you think that you're starting doesn't really, that's just a story. You might
Yeah.
have started a process that will end up something completely different that you're not conscious of yet.
yeah, I think it's interesting to look at the idea of beginning and end, because in we see all things in the old way of seeing that everything has a beginning and will have an end. But in reality, it there is no beginning and no end to anything. It's all un unstoppable flow, or no thing, or everything. It's never starts and never ends.
Yeah.
And
Mm.
Yeah, even, the story of continuation or a process, progress. It's just the mind stitching together different experiencing into one continuous illusion.
So if we bring this back to something substantial or something anyway, what about the flatness? the feeling of being unmotivated. Isn't that the real issue? And isn't that based on the idea of a self who should be doing something different?
I think that would totally depend on what interpretation you would want to give that.
I was going to say something like that, Vince, because what's been experienced here is like as this some unraveling has happened, and things that I used to do, I stopped having the combustion, the catalyst that was there was let go of or seen as mind created or artificially created. And so, but everything still happens. It just seems to happen uncaused. And so I am just watching things unfold. And yet there was a period, and whatever, ups and downs, all turns all around, of course, but there seem to have been periods where I kind of like let go of things, or things stopped happening as much because I wasn't making them happen. But as time goes on, if time's a thing, it they seem to still happen, but I'm not causing them. It's just happening.
Mm.
I don't know if that made any sense to anybody, but that's what came out of my
Yeah,
mouth.
it does. Yeah, yeah. I get that.
In my experience, the flatness is just a contrast of being in a dream of highs and lows, and mm, when that ego driven high and low stops happening, life seems flat. But when you get used to not having those highs and lows, the flatness isn't really flat anymore. It's just contentment. But there's a phase where it feels really flat. There was here, at least.
Yeah, I can't relate to that flatness, but I do, using my memory, I do recognize that when I'm feeling inspired and I'm expressive, there is no awareness of me. There is just that energy moving, whatever that inspiration and expression is happening. I'm totally unaware of who or what where it's coming from. There is just, but it feels great. It feels good. I like it. It's a very, very enjoyable. It's a high.
Mm.
It involves discovery for me. This, I don't know about anybody else's so-called creativity, but yeah. So at the moment, with my story writing that's happening, I feel like I'm actually revisiting and re exploring this whole awakening thing, seeing it from a different perspective, I guess, slightly different, but much more fundamental. Sounds like I got so complicated, I want to simplify it.
Mm.
And that's what these stories seem to be leading towards more and more.
Find it interesting how, outside of these meetings where I don't have to talk about or share or relate something, there's so little interpretation of what is happening, like why I'm doing something or what I'm getting out of it is more just a doing. And then as soon as we're sitting here and we're sharing experiences, we're creating this meaning on what is happening because we have to relate it. But I didn't have that meaning, I think, as it happens. I created that after when I was relating this to you.
I would say that is more and more my experience. That is, yeah.
It's even more fascinating to watch how those creations somehow, or part of them somehow resonates on the other side. I just created a story or a meaning about something that resonates perhaps in one of you guys for some reason, completely unknown. It's magical.
It's so exciting. It's scintillating. Vince, you said something earlier when you said when you're in those creative moments, it's like this self disappears entirely. But that's always the case. There never is a self, ever.
Mm. Yeah, I meant that there was no awareness of
Yeah,
an origin of this stuff. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I feel so clumsy with language. I feel it's almost like we need to invent an entirely new language to be able to express this stuff more accurately.
Yeah, it's called silence.
That's the one that works. Yes. Yeah.
Maybe we just need to let go of the idea that it needs to fit everyone, that
Mhm,
whatever is
mhm.
expressed will be received by the people who receive them.
Yeah, yeah. there's so much about this that is trust based.
Or
Absolutely. Yeah, that's huge.
letting go of the distrust, maybe.
Mm.
Yeah, there's trust all around. And something I wanted to say earlier, um, when Lenny was talking, was there is an aspect to all of this where you have to trust that you know what you're doing. Like there's no one that can tell you. There is no one that can tell you. This is about you. It's about you. And that's a really important facet to all of this.
But you'll
Yeah,
get there
it's
when you get there. At the same time, nobody can tell you that until that happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's a discovery. I think that people sometimes come too slowly and sometimes happens abruptly, where they just know. Well, they have no more questions. They just know that they can answer any questions that come up, not with an answer, but it can be satisfied. They can be satisfied with just the question. But it's like everybody gets enough tools to be able to do the job for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
It's a noticeable point with lots of people I've found, where they just know that they can do it themselves.
Yeah, I've shared this with Vince before, but I had this period where I felt really sure of my experience. I had no more questions, but I also had this slight doubt of being arrogant. Like, am I just full of myself? Am I fooling myself for thinking that I know everything, which is nothing? That was an interesting thing to let go of.
Yeah. It always seems to just come back to what is happening right now. Right now.
Yeah, but it's also, or my experience here is there was a kind of a shift um, where the dream just became really clear. It was a dream.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
I can't really explain it correctly, but it's like, yeah, it's tangible. What is dream and what is, well, I don't want to say what is not, but yeah.
It's like that game metaphor again, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah. I agree.
there is levels to the dream, I guess. And
There
there's
seems to
always like,
go ahead.
or always I'm saying, but there's so many times where things just drop out from you know feeling like there's no more deepening, like it can't get simpler. And then it's just something deepens again on some level.
But it is always not something that you can really say,
Yeah.
because it's
Yeah.
everything is already said, but somehow it become deeper. Yes, I
Yeah.
relate to this. Yes.
It's like it's never ending. and it never started.
I feel like prefacing, don't go looking for the deepening to anyone listening. That will happen. Or not.
Mm.
Yeah, you said something earlier, Marius, that I want to reinforce. And although I will question some of the actual wording, but I know exactly. But what you said was what I fully agree. It's a gift I want to give everybody, and that is that everything is as it should be. But I would correct that a little bit, and I would forget about the word should, and I would say everything is okay, and then I would forget okay because that suggests that there's a not okay. So I would say everything just is, and in that just is, it's not that there's clarity and contentment and wonderfulness as much as what there is not is any resistance to whatever turns up in life.
Yes, I like
So
the
it's like
word. Yes,
I just
I'm
want to give
sorry.
you, Miko, that yes. I just want to give Miko the gift of saying, I believe everything is going to be okay or not. And it's the same. Yeah. Sorry, Anton.
It's okay. It, it's singular. I don't. How do you say it? Singular. Like you don't have another version of what
Yeah,
is. So it's meaningless to say good, to say bad, to say hot, to say cold. There is nothing else.
yeah.
So so
So how can
what
it be
can be
anything
said
other
about
than?
it?
Yes,
Yeah, so what
yeah,
It's
can
the
be
same.
changed? What can be said?
It's the same thing that was being said earlier to Stelios about the silence.
Yes. It's actually everything that had been said today is
Yes.
this. Like,
Yes. Yes.
and it's so simple. Like nothing can be so simple, even close. Like it's so simple, you have nothing really to say about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this helps a lot, Anton. A singular version of what it is, because you can see the mind making all the possibilities and scenarios,
Yes,
and
yes,
it's just one of this playing already. Yeah, I like this, the singular version.
yes.
You cannot avoid it, you cannot predict it, you cannot
You cannot
do anything
escape it.
about it.
So
Yeah.
it's meaningless to try to find it.
You
Uh,
cannot relate to it.
Of course, yeah, because
Yeah.
yeah, no one to do it. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And if there is, I know, Marius, you said don't go looking for the deepening, and I agree with that. I think if there is anywhere to look, it's it's look for who's looking, I guess, is the way I would say it.
But if you try to see it, it's a trap.
Yeah,
Really.
Yeah.
for me, it always confuses me.
Because it then it would not be singular. Then someone would see it, and then it's two, and it's not what
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah. It's true.
But it's still like it's also fascinating to see how we are using the dream to get out of the dream.
Mhm.
So, you know, we can speak from this place the way we're speaking from it, but everything that was experienced until we actually saw the simplicity was also part of the seeing of it. So we kind of using the dream to see the dream for what it is. Like all the experiences you had up until today, Stelios, and asking these questions and getting these responses and whatever happened inside of your experience, listening to it, all of that was part of it.
Yep. And you know, even knowing that you are in or out of the dream, this knowing is also a dream.
Yes.
There's no getting out of this.
Yeah, there is no way out of this. Just the realization that you are in a dream.
It's also a dream.
Yeah.
There is really nothing can be said.
Yeah. Yeah, Rupert Spira says, like, look, if we're gonna sit here and really talk about ultimate truth, we're just gonna sit in silence here.
Without thoughts.
Yeah.
But there is a, you know, through this apparent process, there is, at least here, is experienced or a seeing of a choice of being in the dream or not, so to speak, being in the interpretation, in the augmentation of, in the need of knowing, so to speak, or not. So before, I was experiencing life constantly needing to know, understand everything, whereas now there seems to be a seeming choice between going into that or just not needing to know. Like I said before, outside of these meetings, it's just very simple. I don't need to know anything. I don't need to relate anything. So I'm not saying that's not a dream or part of the dream, but there is a choice of a different experience in the dream.
Seemingly, of course.
There seems to be a movement of constantly wanting to put this overlay of interpretation on life and just not doing that.
I think it's like a habit.
Yeah.
But it's
It is,
also
but
what's happening.
yeah, but it's yeah, of course, but it's if we just look at it in terms of, you know, the ultimate freedom, if I just use that as a concept,
Yeah.
it doesn't get simpler than that. Like if you stop the habit of constantly interpreting, you know, the only problems that exist are the ones that is created by interpretation.
It's just that it's maybe a bit woo-woo, but there is no the difference between the choice to not identify and the choice to eat an apple or an orange. Like there is no value to that.
Yeah.
It seems that it is. Of course, the experience is everything is not as it is when you identify, but it's all seem like this. When you eat an apple, it seems to taste not like the orange, but there is it. But it's all it, and from it's not even a point of view, but it's not seeing anything really. It's blind. It's like it's all it. The enlightened is not better than someone that is raping and killing. It's maybe like woo woo, but this is how it seems to be. Like there is no differentiation, no.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess that was kind of touching on my point of the relationship with the dream, so to speak. That can you fully recognize it as a dream and not have attachments to wrong or right, good or bad, all of those kind of colors that colors your experience. All of that is interpretation. Yeah.
So there might be a fundamental something here where if we adopt the story, the concept that we're in the dream, then it leads us very easily to say, well, we want it to be different. Or we're happy with it. The one, we have. But if we change that and say, not that we're in the dream, but I am the dream, there's no escaping what's happening now. I can't ask it to be different. It is what it is. So not even that the dream is everything, but I am the dream, which is everything. That made sense to me, but I can see it didn't make sense to some of you guys.
Oh,
No, I
it did
get it.
make sense, but I just I don't think I expressed what I wanted to express fully, and you kind of triggered me to look into that. But I do agree with you, Vince.
It's a this is I said this well the last time I was on a while or maybe a week ago. There's very much an aliveness to this. There's very much a it has to be in the moment. It has to be unplanned. It has to be unscripted. It has to be now. It has to be.
I think even on that level of speaking, like to try to be really, really almost there, yeah, but it is still speaking, and even
Yes.
on this level, every one of us have a bit maybe the different understanding of some word that is making it. For example, when Vince was speaking, I'm relating to it 100%, but I don't feel that there is an I am in this.
Mm.
So, and but we don't really know what is the experience behind the speaking. So it's hard really to say, you know, from where everyone is
Yep.
speaking,
Yeah.
and it's really no one
Yeah.
speaking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good one. Yeah. So when I said I am the dream, I wasn't meaning I am. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
There was no I am in my mind. There was just dreaming.
yes. And for example, Nisargadatta speaking a lot about I am, and but you don't really know what he's saying.
Yeah. Right.
So
And,
in the end, it's your experience here and nothing else. You don't know
yes.
anything else. So
The problem comes in the relating.
it's like,
Any
yeah,
relating implies separateness.
yes,
Yeah, but it's you could say it in that way, like putting it that simply, which wouldn't be wrong. But at the same time, at least here, the experience is a choice of relating to the illusion. So it's not a choice. I need to put this into words, but it's like when you detach from the dream, you still can choose to operate within the dream or not, or you can just go off to the mountains and just, choose to
Yes.
opt out.
Yes.
So in that sense, there is you could say a relationship to the dream, right? I do agree. Um, I see your point, but I just wanted to make that distinction
Yeah.
here.
I'm totally with you. Totally with you.
Yeah.
Alan Watts always said it, I think, quite succinctly when he said, you need to come to learn how to live on two levels. And I like that. I think that's a helpful pointer.
Yeah, and I see that the whole seeming process of it is less and less the division between the two. It just becomes one. But
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would agree with that.
Uh-huh.
It's not really, two levels really implies something that I don't think is right. So in a way, the two levels are like that so-called real world. We gave as if there was someone there for the sake of navigating that. So it's still really the same world. It just has that variation of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Right. For sure.
So am I creating a self here when I'm recognizing that I'm really wanting Miko to have a better experience than she's been having?
Yes.
See, it's your fault, Miko. I'm selfing here.
There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with selfing.
I also want to bring up something else. Because I find it a bit difficult to sort of navigate now in life. Like I used to be a lot here, and now it feels like I'm just completely lost and find it difficult to sort of like make decisions or just, I don't know, navigate through life at all.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, um I had a period of that as well, or I can relate to a period of that as well, where you're so used to making decisions from here, as you say, which is also ego based, whereas now I can't do anything I don't seem to want to do. And so there's more of a bodily sense of yes or not yes or no.
Mm.
And I think that's a process that just takes care of itself. At least that's how it's seen here. It's just a gradual letting go of the mind dictating what it thinks you should and shouldn't do. Um, where, you know, where you before put yourself in experiences where, you know, you find yourself performing or people projecting a specific image of you that they have, where you kind of feel like you're slipping into, which feels yucky in a way. And so that kind of process feels more and more intolerable until you're kind of aligned with what life wants to do.
But how do you know the difference between what is sort of like the real yes and no and triggers? Like, I feel that yucky feeling also can show up when I feel triggered.
Mm-hmm. But does that mean that mm, I guess what I'm saying is that this is an automatic process that will kind of, like I said, take care of itself. And also when you're kind of being triggered, there is probably a noticing of the trigger. And then, getting kind of familiar with the mind's tendency to push through or not. Like, oh, I'm triggered, so I'm going to do it anyways because I'm just responding like this because I'm triggered. Which you will probably do sometimes, and then you will have the experience of doing that, and then in that experience of you actually doing something, you will feel that it wasn't right, and then somehow the system will learn from that and find its own intelligence, so to speak.
Okay.
So this isn't something you can do, it will happen. Just
Yeah.
life will kind of recondition you.
Yeah.
Can anyone,
Sid.
Nico?
Hmm?
Can anyone say what is this that recognizes all this? If it's a
Sorry?
bodily sensation, no, this is for everybody, for Marius, for everybody. I wonder, I often come to this wall. What is this that recognizes the experience? If it's a bodily sensation or it's a decision making.
I don't know.
Yes, it's
Who
mystery.
is asking that question, Stelios? Who needs to know that?
It's me, but this energy comes often to a wall when there is a recognition, then a question comes afterwards. If there is no me, what recognizes? If there is pure experience, there is just seeing, hearing, there are walls, there is light. What of this recognizes? It cannot be the wall, it cannot be the light, it cannot be the sense, but something recognizes all this.
No, that's a logical assumption,
Mm.
right? That there has to be something is a logical assumption. I recognize that recognizing can exist without a recognizer or anything being recognized. It's a sensation, it's a feeling. I just call it recognition. But it doesn't need somebody to do it. Discovery. Recognizing is a version of discovery. Discovery happens. It is there. Why do you insist that there has to be somebody discovering? That's just a logical conclusion. That's believing your mind again.
Imagine if there wasn't the concept of me didn't exist. That is just a learned concept created by humans. It's a word. What if nobody taught you that concept?
Yeah, let's say I'm a primitive in the jungle and I have no language. I could recognize the sun, I could recognize the earth, I could recognize the experience.
Mm-hmm.
But so it's only a logical conclusion that there is only experience.
Even that is a logical conclusion. This is why I like even what Vince just said is also just a story. So that's why I'm pointing back to why do you need to know that? Why do you need to know something that is, you can't know? There is nothing you can know. Absolutely nothing. You can't even know that you can't know nothing. It's just on and on and on and on and on.
You know.
No, I don't.
No. I no, you know. There are many moments that the mind shut up, okay, and there is just pure being. And something that it cannot be me can see maybe afterwards that there was no thoughts, but this is a thought, right? So
Well, it's not even a
in
thought.
this sense, what is it? Because
It's
this is
an
a wall I hit
experience.
every time.
It's
So
an
experience is not
experience of having a thought, or an experience of thinking back to what you call a thought. But the experience itself is just a spontaneous momentary experience of that. There's no there's there's no continuity.
so there is experience, and then a thought comes that says it was only experience. It was no self.
There is an experience, then there is an experience of having a thought.
Okay. So there is an experience, and then there is an experience of a thought says it was just an experience.
Yes.
And if you experience you
You are frozen,
if
Vince.
you investigate as and sorry, hopefully it won't happen again. Do you remember way back the cup exercise?
Yeah.
Do you remember that you experienced the experience of the cup, but you had to stop the experience of the cup when you asked the question who was experiencing? And
To be honest,
you had to think about it. You had to create that person by thinking about it. I froze again, sorry.
yeah.
So the self can only exist as a concept, as a thought. There's nothing real about it. It's just a thought.
And
And it's a bit harder to see. Go on.
no, I thought you were done because you froze. Yeah. You can finish it, Vince.
I was just
Frozen.
going to say, it's a little bit harder to. Sorry, don't worry.
But also let me point out something interesting is that can you notice how your experience is experienced through a filter of a story of me? Like what
Yeah.
is happening to me, is relating to me, and all of that is created.
No, but I can see a story saying that the experience happens to nobody. I have seen the thing that you said, but
Okay.
sometimes I come to this world that but as you say, it's probably it's just a thought describing what was happened as an experience a moment before. That it was nobody doing anything, and then it's still something in and out. I can, and then something pulls back and describing. But the moment of recognition that there was nobody, it's still it is still recognized. And this recognition confuses me that what is experience this?
But-
I'm doing circles, as you can see.
Yes. Can
It's not a, yeah, go ahead, Anton.
can I ask you something, Stelios?
Yeah, please.
What is closer to you than any experience? Do not answer. Just try to see what is more close to you than any thought, than any sensation, than anything.
For
And
me, the first thing,
yes, speak.
no, the first thing that comes is the sensation
Yes,
that
but
it's closer.
okay, what even closer than this sensation?
The knowing.
And what is so close that there is no distance whatsoever?
I don't know.
Stay here. Me, I don't know also. No one really knows, but it's okay that we don't know. It's so it's so close, there is no space to see it. But it's always here.
What is here that is not thought or sensation? That's what Anton is pointing to, I think. Whatever came
Yeah.
first in your experience.
It was the environment that it includes
Yep.
everything.
But even if, yeah, but do you also see that as soon as as soon as that is known, the moment of recognition of environment, it's even before that.
Yeah. When something says the environment,
There's a
it's a
layer.
thought.
Yeah.
And
And
the between,
it's important to see that any thought that comes is just a thought. There is no thought that is more real than another thought. So the mind can come with everything. What is the experience of the experience? Who is seeing? But it's the same thought as a thought, I need to pee. There is no difference. A thought is just a thought. So it's okay to let go any thought. There is no one thought that is I can let go because it's not important, and another one that is important and I have to inquire into it. It's all the same.
Yeah, and I kind of want to reiterate Stelios that because it seems like it's a tendency to go back to knowing or understanding. Just watch that. There's nothing wrong with that, but that's what is creating all of these um, questions that are ultimately unanswerable. Or you can answer it, but it will never be true.
It's only movement happening.
But you're still trying to describe it.
I don't know what I'm trying to do, but there is something trying to.
And it's okay.
I'm
Yeah,
in and
it's an
out.
energy that is trying something. But can you feel this energy as an energy without it's yeah, and then you can just stay with it and not as a search for something specific, but as experience of an energy that have to search for something. It doesn't matter for what. And enlightenment, sex, food, understanding, and just feel it as it is, just an energy that is trying to search for something, that is trying to do something. It's not you, and you cannot stop it. It's just energy flowing like this. And it feels restless. It's not comfortable, but you can stay with it and not react from it. Like, I will go and have the food and have the sex and have the understanding. No, I will sit and experience it. How it like this.
Yeah, I can do this for hours, but then the question comes: what or who decided to stay with energy? There is still something.
It's the same energy saying this to you. But this thought is more important. I have to know who is deciding if I'm staying, or is it's the same energy that is trying to do something. You see?
Not clearly.
Because there is still a belief in this idea that you have to know who is doing it, and there is no one really. And the things that I'm saying is not that I'm saying it to you for you to change something. It's just the saying happening, and maybe it will, you know.
Later in, yeah.
Yeah, but you do not have the possibility to decide, okay, now I will sit. Now, no. But it's just happening, and we don't know how it will happen in a moment. So maybe in a moment you will be absolutely done and with no need to understand anything. Just stay open to to everything, you know. For example, for me, in the last like 20 minutes, 30 minutes, the energy started to flow upwards, and I have more difficulty with speaking. I'm more stuttering, and like the overall sensations in the physicality is not so pleasant right now as it was in the beginning of the Zoom talk. But it's absolutely obvious that I am not the one that created it. And life is just like this. It's changing all the time. And some experiences we label as uncomfortable, and our experience we label as uncomfortable. And the whole understanding is that it's just a label, and all there is always what there is. Even the fact that 30 minutes ago I had different sensation, it's just a fact here. I don't even know if it's really happened. It's not really happened, because the only thing that there is is this. But we all the time trying to go somewhere, remembering something that is not here. We are running from the experience that there is to an experience that is not. And it's a joke. It's really and it just happens. We not really, it's not something that we do. It's a habit of the mind. Yeah, because from childhood, this is what we learned. So it's not something that is happening in an instant usually, but the seeing of this is instant.
Yeah.
You know, this is it, you know, that's it. But the habit, it seems that it takes time for the habit to die. But it's just a habit. It's like smoking, you know. It will die when it dies. It's not something that we can do.
I don't know.
when you say,
Yeah, go ahead,
yeah,
Sebas. Finish that thought.
when you say that for you now, what was happening in the body and sensation and the energy, for me, there is a energy here in the jaw and in the head.
Yeah. Yes.
And I'm noticing now that there is no need to go to the story to describe why I have this energy. But some of the times, maybe the experience will be to go. There is no wrong or right if I go or not, because that was happened, right?
Yes.
Yes. The only thing that makes something wrong is you say that it is wrong.
Yeah.
But some sensations are so ancient that it's even like you, it's like a thought that is attached to a sensation, and it seems
Really tight,
real.
really
Yeah,
real compressed.
and yes, and this is how the identity is really working. It's the thought
Yeah.
I that attached itself to a sensation of something in the chest, in the throat, in the stomach, you know, and it seems so real because of the fire of the sensation, and it says I need to have control. I need to know.
Yeah.
I need to, but it's just a thought, really. And so it's really helpful to divide the sensation from the thought.
Wonderful.
And yes, and stay with the sensation. And then it's not
Yeah.
such a huge problem.
Do you think we can go, because there are totally some sensations gathered in the body, even through the birth, you know? And in my case, this is true. Do you think, and you know, it's so many years repressed and still here, that it feels like a part of us, because it's familiar, even though we don't want to go there, it's always here. Do you think we can go that back, not analyzing, but bring it on and express it?
It's not something that we can do, but as more you stay with what is, you don't choose how much you will stay with what is, but this
Yeah,
is how it seems. As more you stay with what is, all those aches and traumas will come up to the surface, and you will experience them more intensely from one side, but there will be less and less resistance to them. And sometimes, in some cases, inquiry will happen. You will see yourself in the childhood having some experiences, and this is why today I'm feeling this and that. It can happen, but it have no really an importance to it if it's happened or,
yes.
or not happen. What's important, and it's not really important, is it's just you staying with what you
To feel it.
feel here and
Yeah.
now. You have sensations, just stay with them, and maybe it can be also helpful to be more compassionate and loving with them when you can. Sometimes
Yeah, yeah.
there is rage and I don't love anyone, and it's okay.
Yeah.
You yes. So the love is unconditional. The real love is unconditional. So rage and hate is also unconditional love, because this is what is happening, and everything is like this, unconditional. Because if the love have conditions, it's not a real love. Like, if I am nice and beautiful, you love me.
Yeah.
And if yeah, it's not love, it's just conditions.
Stelios, do you also see that there's no way for you to know if any sensations are stored in the body from birth, that is also a story, and that by believing that story, you are believing that there is a self? There's just what's happening now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So framing
Even
it and seeing it that way, you're kind of, without realizing that you are building or creating a self.
yeah, I can see that only stories happening now, that it's a story happening now.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about some constant sensations in the body, that it feels like they're in my whole life, and I can revisit it, can relive it, but they're
But
so deep and old that they don't dissolve to something. Okay, they transform for sure.
they move, they change. I have a similar experience that you are describing, but as I see it more clearly, I see how it moves, how it changes, and how it's not really stagnant. It seems
Yeah.
like there, yes, there is
The more you see
areas
it, yeah,
of,
it's not.
yes. So just staying with them without the judgment as much as you can. Sometimes it's so intense that some
Yeah.
layer of resistance arising, and it's okay, but you will see that it have its life, it's moves, it's, yeah.
It occurs to me that it could be right. It might or might not be right, but let's say it is right that you've had this all your life and that it came from your childhood. It's not accurate to say that it's always been there. It just seems like it's always been there. You will arrive at a logical conclusion that it's always been there because you remember it from various times in your life. And so it seems like it's always there. The classic example of this is my tinnitus, right? I'm not aware of it until I mention the word, and now I can hear it. Right? It's there, but I'm not aware of it at all normally. Only when I mention it, only if I think about it. Frozen again. Okay, and so is it reasonable for me to say it's always there, but I only hear it when I think about it? Well, that's also a story, and it may be accurate, but it's irrelevant. In my experience, from the perspective of me, it only exists when I'm actually hearing it. So it doesn't matter whether it's always there. It's not there for me unless I'm thinking about it. Then I can hear it. Just as what you see as coming from your childhood only seems to have always been there. Now, it may have been always there. I don't know. We don't know. You don't know. But it's irrelevant whether it has or not. It's actually there now. And what is it? We can only put a story around it about coming from your childhood. What it is it's a contraction. What it is it's something that got triggered. And so it's in the now. Now, it's also true to say that if it did come up throughout your life, every time it came up, it relied on the belief that there was a self there for it to occur. In fact, you could even go as far as to say it relied on the idea that there was a continuous self, an evolving self from a child to an adult. But all you have about yourself as a child is a memory and a whole lot of stories. And we
There is
know
a
you.
memory.
Yeah.
There is a memory, but there are also past experiences, right? That past experiences created something in the body.
Yes, they changed the body into what it is now,
Mm-hmm.
but we don't really.
So
We can only assume a lot of stuff. It's reasonable. It's a logical conclusion that it changed you. Maybe you only came into existence this morning, and you were programmed to think about everything that's ever happened to you. Like that movie Total Recall. Maybe all of this is not true. It was just some something that was put into you about your whole life up till now, or somebody else. Who knows? All we know is what we know now, and we don't even know that. It's just a story. But the whole point is, if you had this experience that you say is familiar, every time you had it, it relied on the illusion of a self to exist. So let's say it came as a result of conditioning that happened to you as a child. You know, you had certain experiences and that developed, and as a result of those experiences, you developed an idea of yourself that created uncomfortable experiences. And you learned over time to avoid those uncomfortable experiences. So you buried whatever it was that happened. You know, that's a good logical explanation, a good logical story about where this stuff comes from. But it's only a story that says you need to see that in order to get rid of it. You don't. You only need to see that every time it occurred, it relied on the idea of a self existing to be there. It was a belief about yourself that you learned. But what is this self that it was about? It's a story. So you had a story about a story. And you've carried that with you all your life, that story about a story.
How can we stop believing in that story? Because everything you said makes sense. I repeated it all the time, but
Yes.
probably I still believe in.
Yeah. So you can't intentionally drop a belief, but you can see that belief rests on not substantial in any way. That belief was there because a story was believed in. So because one story was believed in, that is that you are a person, then a second story was believed in, that this person had these another story about himself. So we've got stories about stories about stories here. So if we recognize that is the case, that's likely to change the belief because it's not substantial. Now, we're not going to set out to change the belief. We're just going to set out to recognize that all we've got is stories about stories. We've got stories about young Stelios, and young Stelios, one of those stories was that young Stelios was a person. And the person had this attitude towards himself that he was whatever the trauma was. He was unworthy. He was a bad person. He was whatever his parents told him he was, most likely. But they're stories about stories about young Stelios as a person, and then stories about what that person was like. And that's what you've avoided all your life, and that's what you've got to deal with today. And simply recognizing that they were stories about young Stelios is enough to go, well, Jesus, they're just stories. Why would I believe a story just because it exists? But you can't do it. You can't say, I'm going to stop believing. But you can recognize that what you believe has no legitimacy. It's just a story.
In my case, they still affect my reality.
Mm. And they will until
I die.
You don't know
they
this.
don't. Reality, yeah. Sorry?
You froze, so now it's
Yeah.
hard to it's, yeah. It's just that maybe it's not affecting you. It's affecting the, how to say, the whole system of the body, the mind, yeah, the psyche have its way of having experiences. Then it's creating the tension, and then it's in some moment in childhood it's also create an identity with those ideas, stories, and sensations. But seeing that this identity it's just a thought that is attaching itself to sensation, and the sensation is, you can in a story say that the sensations is a result of something that
Occurred in the past.
yes, but it's not really so needed. It's just feeling. In the sensation you have all the story. In the feeling of the sensation, it's like the story in
It's
in
trapped.
a way that you can feel it, not think about the story, but feel the story in the sensation. The sensation, in a way, it's a story. It's also
Yeah.
not real. It's just energy, you know. But
Yeah.
when you feel it and you give it the love and the like, the whole thing with this sensation is that when you was a child and something happened, there was no one to say to you that it's okay, we love you, and it will end, it's okay, you know. But and now you can feel it and love it and give this sensation the acceptance that it did not had in childhood. But it can take some time. But what is more important, that it is not connected in any way to awakening. There is no conditions for you to see that what is. So you can be awakened and have lots of trauma, but you will see it in another way, and it may also heal itself, but you it will not be so an issue for you, less and less.
So, is it okay to feel insecure until you die? If it's part of an experience?
When you are not speaking from the identity, you will not care. But as long as there is someone there feeling those sensations and suffering because of those sensations, you will try to do something with it, to heal yourself, to have some, I don't know, breathing techniques or other techniques, anything that can fix the sensation. And you don't really have the ability to stop it. But when you are seeing that there is no one that experiencing it, you don't care. You have all the sensation and you have them even stronger, and you don't care. But you cannot really and it can be in some moment that you feel that it's okay, and in other moment identity that is coming somehow you feel identity in a way, and you care. But it's like this until it's not, you know.
I have been to this place you are talking about many, many times. Be with it, feeling it, go, not intentionally, but the experience it dropping me to the little cellulose and reliving it, all it, and cry about it and hug it and really love this guy. And there is acceptance and stuff like this.
And
But it never goes
why
away.
it's still here? Yeah, but as long as you say
Can we
why
stop the
it's still
recording for
here,
5 minutes? Can we stop the recording for 5 minutes?